Okay, so just jumped in the car. I'm heading over to FedEx to drop off a package. We've got a predominantly highway heavy drive here. So right now we're on 202. We're then going to jump onto 76 very briefly. And then we've got a little bit of back roads driving from there on, let's see, what is this? Montgomery Avenue here in the main line. So we are going to discuss a new update coming out for Hardware 3 vehicles, which has kind of been the topic of conversation from a lot of my videos. So everything that I've been kind of putting out recently has been talking about Hardware 3, because personally I think that, like, with these videos I'm making, with the full self-driving videos, I want to be as up-to-date and current as possible with the newest version to showcase what these cars are able to do with the best hardware and the best software. But the truth of the matter is, with me being on Hardware 3, I'm kind of lagging behind and not getting those newest versions. But I think there's a lot of people that have Hardware 3 that are going to be in my similar scenario with similar versions coming out. So I want to try to maintain talking about that, because I think that there's a good amount of people that'll be interested. So this newest version is 12.6. Yes, I know there are Hardware 4 vehicles on 13, so this whole generational leap, but we've got 12.6 finally rolling out to employees. I know that people were saying that their Model S's and their Model X's are getting this update, but this here on my phone, on the charger, is the list of the improvements that are being included in this software update, and there's a lot to be excited about. I think there's a lot of things that are addressed in here that I've been dealing with over the past couple of videos I've made that really are starting to get annoying for me. So in the beginning here, the first two bullet points, it just says that it's end-to-end on highway and it's improved city street behavior, which are things that I think we're going to see in basically every update moving forward. Like, these are just general improvements to how the car handles and drives on a highway setting, when using interchanges, when merging, when exiting, and stuff like that, and as well as just being on the general smaller streets, whether you're in the city, whether you're going through town, whether you're in a neighborhood. So all of these things are being improved upon. Now, specifically for the city streets, it says that it's going to reduce false slowdowns and improve obstacle avoidance. And this is like the first of a couple of notices or a couple of bullet points within these patch notes where the software is being improved when it comes to speed, which, man, that is something that I've had just so many issues with the car slowing down, not going the speed limit, changing the speed very frequently. So speed to me is something that I think makes the entire experience feel not human-like. So when I'm in the car and I have the car just changing speeds so much, it's something that kind of annoys me, and definitely, I'm sure, annoys a lot of other people out there. Now, so again, I think that these two first bullet points are just kind of like general notes that are going to be included in basically any full self-driving update that we get from here on out. They might give us a little bit more information. So, for example, the false slowdowns being improved, as well as the obstacle avoidance. Those are two great improvements. And I guess in terms of the highway driving, it just says highway end-to-end on highway. So right now we've got an automatic lane change here, getting over into the faster lane. I'm doing 75 on this 3-lane highway here, just kind of trying to maintain the speed of traffic. For those wondering, I do have my car on the assertive profile, and I've got minimal lane changes turned off. So I know that with assertive, whenever it goes and gets into the left lane, pretty much no matter what, it's going to stay here. I noticed that the car never wants to get out of the left lane when it's in the assertive mode. We will need to make a right-hand exit up here, and then we're going to have to do a merge, which, as I've noted in previous videos, the merging is a little bit weird here on full self-driving, and specifically speaking, this merge is one that definitely is annoying. So I'll point that out as we get up here and as we switch off of 202 and onto the Interstate 76. Now, the next bullet point, after the two that I'd mentioned there, it says customizable speed profiles, which apply to roads and highways with 50 mile per hour or higher speed limits, which is interesting. So for that, like, these different speed profiles, I guess, are going to give you the ability to change how fast you're able to go depending on what profile you're in when you get onto certain roads. I know that as you kind of get up into the 50 mile an hour speed limit zone, you start to get onto more streamlined, straight roads that aren't too windy or curvy. So when you get onto these higher speed roads, it actually gives the software Full Self-Driving a much better chance at staying on the road, and I would say just staying with traffic. I think that the lower speed limit roads are actually the times where the software can experience some of the more difficult challenges. For example, being in the city, my previous upload, I was driving on city streets under the speed limit on roads that are super tight, on roads where people are crossing and walking, on roads where there was no lines. So I actually think that there's a lot of situations where you could encounter some scenarios where it's more difficult in these lower speed limit areas. It is changing the route. Okay, cool. So it's changing lanes. I was gonna go and just hit the turn signal because I've got somebody riding up behind me that wants to pass, which is totally excusable. I mean, that's totally cool. I know that Full Self-Driving for some reason just wants to sit and hammer in the left lane if you have the assertive profile on. So it was nice that the car got over. Although if I didn't have to make a right up here and exit, I wonder if the car would have just stayed there and just had the person pass me on the right side, which would have been annoying. I do wish that the car would get over a little bit more, and I think just something that it comes back to is just have a little bit more general awareness about what's going on around it, and if somebody wants to pass you, get over to let them pass you, even though I'm in the assertive mode. So the customizable speed profiles are cool. It also says that there's going to be earlier and more natural lane change decisions, which is great. I mean, right now, I won't lie, these lane changes have actually been great. Like, this feels very human-like. This feels, to me, something that, like, I would do. I don't know why we're getting into the left lane here. We could have just stayed in the right lane and kept going, but, you know, I do think that this right lane will end up ending as we get closer to the interstate up here. And this is a little bit of a weird interchange where now the highway kind of cuts down to 2 lanes instead of 3 lanes. It'll kind of weave us around the corner. A couple of other highways like merge on here, and then this one general road merges on to the interstate. Now, it's funny that we mentioned the earlier and more natural lane change decisions, and actually right back there, it did a really good job at changing lanes. I think, you know, starting off in the middle lane, going and passing by the person, that was great. And then after we made that a couple of passes, it then got back into the middle lane to kind of get up closer to where we had to go, got over into the right lane, passed a couple of people, and now we're here. So I think that those lane changes were great. Now, the speed limit is starting to lower here, so we are slowing down. We were just at 70 miles an hour. Now we're at a maximum of 65 miles an hour. This is always an area where the speed kind of starts to tick down. One of my issues when the speed changes and when it gets so low is that it like really throws on the brakes to the point where I move forward in my seat a little bit. I wish that when you had that speed change going from, you know, let's say 70 down to 65 in this scenario, it didn't feel like it had to do anything in its power to get down to 65. Like, it could take a couple of seconds to get down rather than doing this herky-jerky movement. Now, notice this sign up here. This lane is going to end. We're going to stay in this lane. These 2 lanes come together and end. We have this arrow pointing, telling us to get over to the left. And notice how the car is hugging on the right side. It's sitting on this right solid line. We now should be merging. We have plenty of time to get over, but the car is staying in this lane. It's not merging until we get to the very end where we have no choice but to merge. Now look, in this scenario, it's cool. Like, there was nobody to my left, there's nobody behind me. We're in a fairly open area here. But back there, if there was a really tight, congested area, and at the last minute the car tried to merge over because it had no more lane, I mean, that's a little bit of a dangerous scenario. Also, I really wish, since I was doing 70 back on that highway, when we got onto this highway, it would put me back up to that speed, but it knocked us down to the speed limit of 55. So when I mentioned in one of my previous videos about the merging not being all that great, I mean, that back there is one of the scenarios where I always run into problems where the car is just going to stay in the lane and not actually get over until you run out of room in the lane, which can be dangerous. Like, if you have no room to get over, Full Self-Driving can be a little bit cautious sometimes. It would make it difficult to actually get over if there's not much room and you're trying to merge at the very last second. Now, personally, I don't like this merge. We are going to have to exit in a mile here, and the car is getting over into the left-hand lane. I understand that it wants to try and go fast and get around some of these vehicles, but at the same time, it should notice that we're getting off on a right-hand exit in now 0.8 miles and probably should have just stayed over to the right. Now it's going to have to try to maybe squeeze in front of this car on the right-hand side here or drop back and get behind it. So just a little bit of an annoying move. So yeah, getting back to our changes here, the earlier and more natural lane changes is definitely a nice welcome improvement. We're getting over to the right here. It's sped up a little bit, so it kind of hit the accelerator and squirted in between these two vehicles. That actually did a pretty good job. Now, jumping off here on this exit, we are going to have to make a right where you kind of yield onto the next road. So if there's any oncoming traffic, let's say if they have a green light, then the car is going to have to try and come to a stop and almost yield and wait for the traffic coming through the light. Now, in this scenario, I would have to like look over my shoulder all the way, almost through the rear view, not the rear view, the rear window, in order to see these vehicles coming. So just using all the cameras, it'll be interesting to see how it handles this turn here. Nice smooth exit there. It was a little bit indecisive when getting off the highway, and right now I can feel it kind of jerking, like it's tapping the brakes ever so slightly coming down the hill here. But now it's coming to a much more smooth brake. So we're going to go and get in the right lane here. The car's coming to way more of a slowdown than I probably would have continuing around here. So they do have a green light. They're coming through. Traffic is coming through here. It's going to get right on. Nice. Cool. Now this lane is going to end, so it needs to get into the left-hand lane. And this car is going to let us go. Oh, it hit the accelerator. All right, so very nice of that car to let us in. But again, at the very last moment, oh, and now it's slowing down. And these people are probably going to start flashing their lights at me. So that was pretty good there. I mean, you kind of merged right on to the road, and then right then and there, the lane ended. So it was nice that that person let us in. I've always mentioned this, that the Philadelphia drivers are just complete assholes. And we're outside of Philly right now. We're more in the suburbs, so people are a little bit nicer to let you in. But yeah, so right now, you know, we talk about the speed. The speed limit is 35 miles an hour, but I've got a car, or a line of cars, probably about 7 deep behind me right now, all right up against me. I'm doing the speed limit, 36 and a 35. I've got my maximum set to 45, but the car is not wanting to go any faster than 36. Okay, let's move down to the final 2 bullet points on our list here as we kind of get into the back roads. We have redesigned controller for more smooth and more accurate tracking. So, I mean, that's just kind of some back-end stuff. I guess now it just means that the car is going to be able to determine objects and stuff that's around it a little bit better as it drives around and moves through space. But the final update here, the final bullet point, max speed update, where autopilot determines the suitable speed within your allowed limit. Now, it's always funny, like these updates and these changes are always so vague. Like, to me, that's super vague, right? Like, where it determines suitable speeds within your allowed limit. So does that mean the allowed limit, like the speed limit of the road? Does that mean my allowed limit? So does that mean the actual speed that I set? So here I set this to go 45. So what does that mean? I have no idea. It's going to be interesting to kind of get our hands on that new version and give it a try, give it a test. But all around, it seems like these updates are going to be great. Now, as of right now, I'm still back on 12.5 maybe. It's really hard to keep track of all of the different versions, but all I know is that I'm below 12.6 right now. We had a little bit of a tight curve there, and the car kind of came to a slow halt as it went around. It didn't really prepare for that tight turn. It almost went into the turn at the same speed, and as we're going through the turn, it was like, oh, we should probably slow down a little bit here. That's the one thing about these back roads here in PA is they are windy and curvy. Now, luckily, this road just got repaved. As you can tell, it's a nice, smooth ride, but this road, man, it used to be riddled with potholes. We are doing under the speed limit right now, so we're doing 30 and a 35. It's actually slowing down even more. This is the one thing that just drives me up a wall. I mean, I'd be doing usually like 40 driving through here, but now we're doing in the 20s, like doing 28, 27 in a 35 is really just brutal to deal with. But yeah, so these are all great changes. I'm going to hit the accelerator here just to try and give it some more juice. I've noticed that, you know, when you start to hit the accelerator and then you let it go, like I've let it go now at 40, and it's like, okay, yeah, I can do 40. Slowing down a little bit here because of the curve. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to these updates, looking forward to these changes. I think overall, I'm just most excited that Hardware 3 is still in the loop with the updates. I wonder if there's going to be some sort of end-of-life update to where, like, hey, this is going to be the last full self-driving update, barring any, you know, bugs or patches that need to be made, but this is like the end of the improvement cycle, and I wonder when that's going to be. Of course, Hardware 3 at some point in time isn't going to be feasible for the full self-driving that we need for unsupervised full self-driving or a full fleet of vehicles. So it's going to be interesting to see how much further Hardware 3 is able to be tuned for full self-driving, because I don't know. just the way that things are trending, it seems like so much development is being put into hardware 4, and so much of the new versions and software coming out is being optimized for it way before hardware 3, that it's kind of like the writing is on the wall. Hardware 3 is definitely being phased out. The final thing that I want to mention is a lot of stuff about hardware 5 being mentioned on some of the comments in my videos, which is interesting. You know, I don't really know exactly how often they're going to continue to update the full self-driving hardware of the vehicles between the computer, the actual full self-driving computer, as well as the cameras around the vehicle, and really just maybe any other sensors that are added in the future. And I had somebody comment that hardware 5, even though it's coming out in July, is going to be way too heavy of a power draw to be used in consumer vehicles, and it'll only be used in commercial vehicles. Now, I don't know what commercial vehicles would be compared to a consumer vehicle. Could that be like some sort of van? Could it be the full self-driving hardware needed for the Tesla Semi? I'm not sure. You know what I mean? Hardware 5, it's kind of hard to pin exactly what Tesla is going to do. Man, it is slamming on the brakes here. All right. So I mean, it just completely slammed on the brakes here, kind of driving through that small intersection. We went from doing about 35 down to 25. Now we're back up to 40. So the speed is fluctuating fairly greatly. This is one of my least favorite roads. I mean, luckily, today is the first day of the year. It's January 1st, 2025 when I'm recording this. Don't know when I'm going to end up uploading it, but it's the first day of the year, and this road usually at this time would be absolutely packed. But of course, people are off from work. They're home. They're not going to be out and about. But yeah, this road is such a nightmare to deal with. It's such tight roads here. Like, it's such a tight lane. And on the right here, we do have a little bit of a curb. I've had plenty of times where I'm trying to dodge traffic or move around. I hit the curb, scratch up my wheel, scratch up my rim, which is always such a pain. But yeah, guys, I think that's pretty much where I'm going to end this video. We've got another 8 minutes left to drive here to get to FedEx to drop off my package. But those are the updates coming here in 12.6. Super excited for my vehicle, Hardware 3, to finally get it. Oof, we're coming to a nice stop here. I guess I probably would have stopped there too, but the brakes were a little bit harsh. But hey, good spot to end the video here. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, I'll catch you in the next one.